Hey, Tooth and Corners, it is February the 21st when I'm recording this episode. Some news has came out in the last few weeks in terms of taxes. The biggest thing in terms of this is with President Trump's announcement that he is wanting to abolish the IRS. The IRS stands for the Internal Revenue System, and the Internal Revenue System is where the vast majority of the income comes from to the U.S. government. As of right now, about half of the total income for the entire U.S.'s economy comes in through the income tax system for the federal government. So that means the tax dollars that you're funding is what we use to spend money on the cost of keeping up with infrastructure, the cost for paying government salaries, the cost for all the things that go along with that. On the federal level. Obviously on the state level, there's income taxes, there's sales tax, there's property taxes, etc. Lots of different things that will pay for these different pieces of the puzzle. The big news is that Trump is saying that he wants to get rid of the Internal Revenue System, get rid of income taxes, and move to effectively doubling down his tariff proposal. So what does this mean? Well, it means that he's wanting to effectively charge more money for imports and exports from other countries to pay for our taxes. Right now, I believe the number that I looked up was somewhere around $3 or $4 trillion a year is brought in income taxes into the U.S. economy. So that means in order to replace the Internal Revenue Service with the External Revenue Service, is what he's calling it for this tariff system, he needs to generate $3 to $4 trillion in tariffs. This is about a 50 times multiple over what the prior tariff system was bringing in. It's a hard pill to swallow. Can it be done? Maybe, we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how it affects things. Just as an example of that, he's talking about doubling tariffs from, say, like China, which if they double the cost of the tariffs from China, that means that it's going to double our cost for anything we purchase from China because they'll have to pay the tariff. But the vendor who's selling it over there is going to have to double their fees to get their margins back to where they were before. That'll increase our costs for those goods. I suppose the thought there is that it will spur the U.S. economy to be more, that whole made in the USA mantra that we had maybe 20 years ago, which is a little bit of a surprise because it feels like over the last 20 years, that's not really been as big of a deal anymore because of the fact that economically it has been proven that it's actually better for us to outsource a lot of those things to other countries. I'm not sure what we'll accomplish with this. I'm not sure if it will succeed. I'm not sure if it will have the intent that it says it will. But I think it's an interesting thing one way or the other to have happen. I'm one to always enjoy looking at interesting revenue and expenditure items. At one point in time in the U.S.'s economy, we did use a lot more from tariffs as a percentage of revenue coming into the federal government. But the income tax system has generally worked pretty well in supporting the economy. So some numbers about the tax revenue. So tax revenue makes up 84% of federal revenue. Tariffs currently have not exceeded 2% in federal revenue in over 70 years. So going from 2% to already for 6% is a big, big jump. When you talk about the U.S. economy in terms of goods and services and sales and things like that and GDP, there's different ways to look at it. And if you want to simplify it, then you can look at it from a budgetary standpoint. The income or revenue for the U.S. government, most of it does come from income taxes, or the lion's share comes from income taxes. And that's the money in, and then the money out is expenditure. So for defense spending, all the things that go along with that. It's probably well known that the government has been running at a deficit for quite a long time now, and that deficit has been growing and growing and growing. And interest is starting to go up. It's getting harder and harder to pay back those loans, which is going to cause a pretty big financial issue relatively soon if something isn't done well. I think that changing the way in which you generate revenue, while that is the reality, is a hard pill to swallow and a difficult thing to even think of. I personally don't think it's a good idea, but time will tell if this happens. There is a study being done right now, and he actually signed an executive order, I believe, to have a study done to see if this is even something that's feasible, to see what type of revenue it could generate. So in terms of that executive order, that was directed to the Treasury, Commerce, and Homeland Security departments to investigate the feasibility of it. The important thing is that even if it does come through, this is something that would require congressional approval to become reality. And even though it is a Republican-led Congress right now, I think it'd be really hard to get approval for this unless everything came back really, really positive from those studies. And even then, I'd find that probably hard to believe with all the policymakers needing to sign on. I'll be interested in seeing what they come back with. On the other side of the coin, so that's the revenue side, on the expenditure side, it is DOGE, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, I believe is what it is, which is headed up by Elon Musk and his ragtag team of entrepreneurial people that are assessing different government agencies throughout the government expenditure side of things. As of today, I think that Elon's saying that they've saved in the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars in government spending just being in place for a couple months. It's really fun to see kind of what they're saying is happening. It's a little confusing on if what they're saying is reality or not. So as an example, there was Elon saying on on X. I don't know if I'll ever get used to saying X instead of Twitter, but here we are. And saying that there's like 150-year-old, 200-year-old people on Social Security. And then if you dig into it, there's people saying that, no, that's just because the person who did the analysis didn't understand the coding language for how the data was returned to them. And so there's actually no one that has those ages. It's just a way that the data is displayed and then converted into the spreadsheet that they use. It's really fascinating to figure out what's going on here. And it's fun seeing some of the things happen from a current news event perspective. However, from the human side of things, there's people related to my family that have lost their jobs over some of the cuts because different agencies lost funding. And so while it is funny to see Elon memeing it up on Twitter about all the money that they're saving people, there is a human element to this too. There's people that do lose their jobs and careers and things like that. And I know the natural tendency is to say, maybe that position wasn't a warranted or needed one. And again, that may have some validity. But it'll be interesting to see what the tailwind effects of all these changes are going to be here in 6 months, 6 years, 60 years from now. I think that Trump doing this is going to be an interesting note into the history books, because I don't think we've ever had a president who likely cares so little about the people coming in behind him. So in other words, he doesn't really probably care who the Republican's going to be that comes in behind him. He's just doing his thing. It's also fairly interesting in the fact that he had 4 years to think about what he could do if he did get another 4 years, and he's now doing those things. So it's an interesting time for sure. From a tax perspective, again, taxes are a really important revenue source for the U.S. government, and tariffs could potentially be a substitute for that. However, there will be really interesting effects to the economy, I believe, if those things happen. As an example to that, whenever Trump said that he was going to be imposing these tariffs on certain countries, those countries came back and said, hey, whenever you tariff us, we're going to tariff you right back. And some even said, we're going to tariff you more if you tariff us. Who knows what happens in terms of all these things? It's going to be interesting to see. But as of today, there's no updates on that. So again, this is a February 21st. I feel like whenever I record these, I have to say the dates of when I'm doing these, because by the time I release them, things have changed. Another thing that changed just in the last couple of days is that the Court of Appeals has said that the BOI injunction is no longer valid, which means that all of a sudden the BOI is now again, the beneficial ownership information report going to FinCEN is again on the agenda, and you have to do it, or else you can get like a $520 a day penalty or fine for not filing that document. So you need to go to FinCEN's website to do that. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to do it. It just needs your driver's license. It just needs your EIN and business information. It's not a complicated form to file. You can go ahead and file it. I wouldn't be surprised by the time that this episode gets released that the rules have changed again, but only time will tell on that. That's the podcast today. So as always, appreciate you listening to the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Tooth and Coin podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a fellow dentist or a practice owner who could benefit. Your word of mouth helps us spread financial wisdom throughout the dental community. So until next time, keep building that thriving practice.